Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you remember from my last video, we were working on the 85 318i, trying to get this thing to start. We were able to get it to kind of fire off and run for a couple seconds. I want to continue with some further diagnosis today, and hopefully we can get this thing to run on its own. I'm going to bring you over. I've got some projects lined up over here. So we need a new intake boot. As you probably remember, I've also been using just a screwdriver on the ignition switch. So I've got the ignition cylinder and housing out of the 91 318i, and that's going to go in here. And then we'll finally have an actual steering wheel. Pick this up on Amazon. Unfortunately, this is a suede cover. I don't really care for suede. I guess I didn't realize that in the listing. I'm sure the Long Island iced tea that I had prior to that probably didn't help in that matter, but it does have some M stripes, so you know it's good for a couple horsey torques. But at least it'll be a steering wheel, and as I move this thing around, you know, it's a little easier to handle. I think the first thing we're going to do, kind of alluded to by the new intake boot, we need to do a smoke test. I'll show you how that works. This was actually recommended by Alec over at Day Off DIY. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, please do. A lot of good stuff. He's actually working on an 84 318i, very similar to the one that I am, although arguably in much nicer condition. Today what we're going to be using for the smoke test is this Autoline Pro ventus smoke machine. It's a really nice kit. The best thing about this is it's ready to go. You don't need a power source. You just charge up the unit itself. The setup was just to fill this reservoir up with some of the fluid that came with it. Then you plug in your line over here, turn the machine on, and it smokes instantly. So it's great. I do have a cheap $15 one that I built myself. It works, it's slow, it's corded, you have to use a transfer pump. I might show that down the road. I mean, it works. But this by far, I mean, leaps and bounds, a much better unit to use. So let me get that set up real quick. I'll show you how it works, show you where I've been seeing the leaks. Then hopefully we'll get this on, move to get the ignition on, so I'm stop playing with this stupid switch and the screwdriver. Get our steering wheel mounted. Then we'll do a little bit more diagnosis on why we don't have ignition. We have plenty of why we don't have fuel. We have ignition, it'll run off of brake clean or ether or anything I spray down, and it'll run on it. We did actually get it to run a little bit on fuel if I primed the pumps first. As soon as the fuel pressure bled off a little bit, she shut down. So we'll dive into that a little bit more. I'm feeling confident we're gonna have some progress there. I don't think it'll be the full solution yet, but at least it'll be some progress. So let me get you guys set up. I'll show you how this ventus smoke machine works. It's really handy. I love it. I've used it a couple times already. So just hang on, we'll get you set up and we'll go from there. Okay guys, I got the ventus over here at the car. Like I said, the setup is super simple. There's no power supply that needs to plug into it. You just charge it up and it's ready to go when you're ready to use it. The one end of the hose just plugs in over top of the reservoir. You got a power button here. This is the nozzle that we're going to use. Like I said, as soon as you turn it on, you hear it working, and she should start smoking here pretty quick. In fact, there it is, even before I could finish my sentence. So this thing is super, super nice. The homemade one that I had, that takes, I don't know, 2-3 minutes to get hot, get some smoke going. It's kind of a pain to use. So this thing is actually absolutely fantastic. Down here in the lower intake, I just have an intake adapter. It's just a balloon, basically a bladder balloon that fills up. And this will plug into the end of the ventus, that red nozzle, and we'll start feeding smoke in. We should see some smoke pretty quick. So let me get that hooked up, get her powered down, and we should see smoke pretty quick. All right, got it all set up. Let's just simply slide that into the hose. She's ready to go. So let's power on. And we should start to see some smoke here pretty quick. I'm trying to get you here a little closer. You see it start leaking out of that intake tube right down here with my finger. Oh yeah, there we go. There's the smoke. So she's a smoker. And then the other area up here on the idle control valve, I think you can see it smoking out of this fitting just a little bit. I know it's a little hard to see on the camera, but you can see it puffing over there by the red wire. So that needs to get replaced as well. I need to do some further searching for this whole intake. Idle control circuit is jabonk. It needs to get redone. This hose here is NLA, this elbow. The couple places that do offer it, I don't know, they want some stupid like 70 bucks or 50 bucks for it. I think I found one place that does have it cheaper. This elbow is pretty cheap, 10, 11 bucks. This is just generic line, so we'll get the right piece for that. And then that wraps down here, and there's a fitting that goes into the intake. So we'll get the correct hoses for that. And I think these lines are part of that system as well. We're gonna get that all sorted out because, you know, I'm starting to kind of appreciate this car for what it is. And, you know, 107 horsepower or something like that. I'm sure it's not gonna be fast by any stretch of the means, but it's still an E30, would be kind of fun, especially with the manual. So I want to get it running and operating the way that it was initially intended to. And then from there, we'll kind of decide, you know, what are we going to do? Are we going to do a power transplant, or are we just going to kind of run it the way it is, clean it up, move it on? But the first step here is to get it running the way it's supposed to. Let me bring you on the other side here. We'll look for some more leaks. I'm not really seeing anything around here. Nothing over here by the distributor. It's just that fitting up here that's all cracked and it's just kind of messed up. So one thing that I always like to do is to pop the oil cap off, and you know you've pumped enough smoke in once you start seeing the smoke come out of the oil fill cap. I'm not seeing it yet. That just ensures that you've got all the passages smoked and full of smoke. So I did do this before. I was getting smoke out of here. The only two places I saw any kind of vacuum leak was that idle control connection and that lower intake boot. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap that boot over, and then we'll bring you back here real quick. I think we're gonna move on to getting that ignition cylinder replaced as the next step. So that boot's, you know, just screws on, and oh, there we go. Now we're getting some smoke out of there. Can you guys see it? Right from the side. So you kind of waft it up. So now we know we've got enough smoke flowing through the system, and we're fully checking everything for leaks. So even this crankcase hose down here seems sealed, although it's pretty rubbery and hard. So we might go ahead and replace that as well. There's some vacuum lines under the intake. Those seem to be holding okay. Let me kill that. I'll swap that boot over real quick. We'll run the Ventus one more time, and I'll show you this bladder before I replace that. So this bladder down here has just got the ball and then just a valve. Loosen that up. And you see the smoke come back out. And this just inflates up into the intake tube. It's a nice way to check that system out for leaks. Obviously you can use any kind of vacuum vacuum line, plug in any of the various attachments with this Ventus, and get your smoke. But this is just a nice, easy, quick way to do it. Initially got it for my E46. Those things are known for vacuum leaks, and that's a good way to make sure that you've filled everything up, the F connector and all the other connections with smoke, checking for leaks. So let me get this boot off here real quick and back on, and we'll go inside the car, swap out that ignition housing, and get the steering wheel on. All right, guys, we got the new intake boot on, as you can see. Got the Ventus plugged back in. I also did want to mention that this is not sponsored. This is this Ventus that I bought out of my own pocket for my own use, and it's just a great product. I want you guys to see it. It works fantastic. Couple things that I saw when I was under there. I knew this was disconnected. This is the connection for the throttle cable. It's not connected to the throttle bracket. It's probably hard for you guys to see where my finger is on. It will not connect there. I'm sure I'm missing something, so I'm gonna have to get on realolem.com and see what exactly is that I'm missing, and get an order together from SCP Euro. There's some other things that I wanna get into after I get this stuff sorted. So we're gonna order a bunch of maintenance stuff for it. Like I said, get this ready to go back on the road. So anyway, I got the intake adapter back on. We got our hose from our Ventus unit plugged in. And let's get her started up. Here doing the magic. So within a couple seconds, we should have some smoke. I'm not anticipating any smoke down underneath the intake, but we want to just double check that there wasn't any other further source. We'll know once I start seeing some smoke come out of that idle circuit connection. And so far, we're looking pretty good. We had smoke pretty quick before. So, I mean, obviously I'm not expecting the hose to be leaking. In fact, now that I got some more light on, it looks like it needs to go up a little bit more on the throttle body. That's not a big deal. But it is not leaking, so that's what matters there. And I am seeing some smoke out of here now. Hard to see maybe with the light. But she is smoking out of that ICV connection. So I know we got smoke going through the intake, and I'm not seeing any other signs of leaks. So that should be our last vacuum source leak. Like I said, that hose is pretty cheap. I'm gonna get that, the rest of the ICV circuit straightened out. So from here, let's go inside the car and start working on the ignition housing. I have the parts car housing out of here, or out here on my table. So even though this car is a 90 or an 85, the other one's a 91, these are the same. I think there are a couple little casting differences. It's simply held on by a security bolt underneath, and all you have to do is cut this little slot with a Dremel tool and get a screwdriver in there, and it unscrews pretty easily, then slides off. So we'll get you in here, show you the one that's currently in the car. And sorry, I forgot to bring my light, but right under here is where I'm gonna cut my little slot. Then this whole thing should slide right off. And then I can get the switches back on, get the ignition cylinder hooked back up, and we should be ready to go with just a regular key now. So let me get you guys set up here with some light and on a stand, and we'll get this thing cut off. I'll probably cut the head off, and there's nothing exciting about watching a Dremel work. So let me get that going, and we'll pick you back up. All right, we got our ignition switch housing and cylinder housing in place. Got the turn signal and wiper stalk mounted. I think I have the wrong screw for this cruise control. It looks like it mounts through those two holes right here on the back side, and this should be a little bit of a longer screw. It's just not engaging, so I need to take a look at that a little bit. It was all floppy and none of it was put together when I got this car. And then obviously we need to tighten up where everything is just kind of hanging down here. I do have the under dash panel from the other car because this one was missing, so we will get that in place as well. Apologize for the light. My little handheld one died, and I'm not sure where my second one is, so I just have the big old pole light, at least to give you a little visibility here. But we do have our key in, it turns, comes on, and there's my starter that likes to engage and sometimes not. But so at least it is working now, so I'm kind of happy with that. I didn't check the switches, so hopefully they're working. Yep, left no blink, but it lights up. Same thing on the right side. Just hazards don't flash either, so it's probably something unplugged or bad relay for that as well. Wipers I'm not going to turn on because I got stuff on the windshield, but I believe that they did work. Of course, missing the one arm, and I do have the correct arm from the other car, so we'll use that. Don't know why we got relay buzzing up there, but we do. So I'll just turn the ignition back off. I'm gonna go ahead and get our coupler on for the steering wheel, but I did forget something on removal of that housing. So here, again, hard to see, there is a retaining clip, washer, and a spring, and that's what really holds us on, and it does have that screw underneath, the security screw. To get this off, you know, you can use a variety of different methods. I mean, a ring plier clip, sorry, I can't think of the words right now, but that would work to kind of spread it out. It's a tight fit, so I just kind of used some 2 flathead screwdrivers, pried it out, popped it off. Make sure you pull, you know, set this stuff out in the right order. So we'll go ahead, get this hub put on. I'm not going to worry about wiring up the horn at this point. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult to do. I'm not going to put that lower shroud on yet either. So this is just all kind of proof of concept stuff. So let me get this on, we'll get our steering wheel on, and we'll be done with the interior for the day. All right, so we got our steering wheel in place. First impressions, again, I don't really care for the suede. You know, if it was Alcantara, maybe. I'd prefer a leather or even just a vinyl or even hard plastic over suede. It just, this stuff, it's porous like Alcantara, and you know, all your hand oils and stuff get in it, and it turns gross over a time. I don't like it anywhere that you're gonna touch over and over and over again. But for now, and it was a cheap steering wheel, so the point of the matter is we now can turn our tires. That was something that really sucked using the other steering wheel that was in this car. That's out of a later E30, like the 91 that I have out there with the airbag. They don't fit over the stalks on the earlier cars. Maybe I could have swapped the stalks out, but this works. You know, the other thing with this wrong seat, I really can't see any of the gauges. The whole top third of both the tack and the speedo, I can't see through the steering wheel. This non-adjustable steering wheel or steering column, there's no tilt, there's no telescope. And it could partially be that these seats, you know, just the way that they're positioned is wrong. We'll have to see when we get the other interior in here. But now we got working steering wheel, working ignition stock, and you know, it kind of ties together with the Hot Boy shifter that the guy put in, a chassis mount. Again, I'm not a huge fan. I've ventured more towards the embrace the way the car was designed, maybe OEM plus enhance it, but I don't know, it's fine for now. We'll see how that works, but I'm happy we got the steering wheel in. It went on pretty easily, so it's just held in with a 22mm nut. So grab your impact, put that on, and should be good to go. So now we're gonna move up back into the engine bay. I want to do a little bit more diagnosis on this fuel pump relay. I still have it out. Ignore this brown wire. I was just checking ground, that terminal's ground. So while I have you guys here, let me grab the actual relay. So we need to talk about orientation. So I don't know if you remember from the last video, the diagram in the manual for the ignition firing order for the distributor was wrong. Well, the firing order was correct, but the terminal on the cap and rotor that was for cylinder 1 was not in the correct position in the manual. So again, orientation, it's important. So I've been looking at this relay, and actually let me turn it this way so you can read the numbers. So I've been looking at this as that I am looking straight down into the socket, and it's actually not. It's mirrored because it's the orientation if you're looking at the underside of the plug or of the relay, not the plug. So what I've been testing, the circuits that, you know, should be doing what they're doing weren't, and vice versa. So when I pulled this off, But what made me realize was this big red wire down in the bottom corner, that is pin 30. That's hot at all times. So the way that I was reading the relay before was that was supposed to be a ground, and obviously you're not going to have a ground that big. The ground is the brown wire right next to it, the little thin gauge. So that's when I figured out that I had been testing the socket out for power in the inverse. So basically what we're going to do, we have our battery hooked up. I got my test light here. So we're going to verify here, and sorry for lighting, but we've got power at 30, which is what we should have because that's coming direct from battery. Then we'll have to go through and check the other terminals. I need to get my my sheets because I don't remember which one's supposed to be which. One terminal here should be hot in start, and the other one should be hot in run and start. So let me just confer with that. We'll test that real quick. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump the fuel pump. Because if you remember, if I had a little bit of fuel pressure, she'd run. So I'm hoping if I jump the pumps and get them running, this thing will bark off. So let me double check that. I'm gonna hook up my fuel pressure gauge again too, probably, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got my test light here in terminal 50, and I read my sheet right. This should be hot and start only. So let's go and crank this thing over. Unless I have it backwards. This one should be hot only in crank up. No, so this is hot in run and start. So let's make sure we're in run right now, and we're hot in start. So the other side of that block should be hot only in crank. So this is 15. Go back. Okay, now we're in position 2 or run, and test light's not on, but as I crank it, that should come on. But it came on, and of course the starter's stuck again. That's gonna need a little bit of attention, obviously. But, so we know those 3 circuits are good. I added the ground to make sure the ground was correct. And according to the manual, as long as those 3 work, you should be able to jump the fuel pump, and this thing should run. And it also should point to that the relay is bad. Now, this relay I just bought. It is possible it's bad. And it's also possible that I got fried with that old fuel pump that was a little too much. It was pulling a lot of current and actually melted fuse 11, which is this 15 amp right here. It melted that fuse, so it was pulling a lot of amperage. It is possible that it fried the relay. So let me just get in there and see if we jump the fuel pump, if we can get this thing to start. Okay, so I got this partially set up here. So what we want to do is pin 30 on the harness. That is your constant power. That was that big heavy red wire that's direct to the battery, so that's hot all the time. Then we want 87 and 87B to jump with constant power. That should run the pumps. So I've already got it in 87 and 87B. Remember, it's mirrored from that picture there, and you hear that? That's our pumps running. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in. We're gonna give her a crank and see what she do. And you can, I don't know if you could hear that on the video, but I could hear fuel flowing up here. So that's a good sign. Back to the car. Position 2, let's give her a crank. And a little backfire. Not sure why she did that. I do have the timer right now, so let's try that again. Oh, that starter. And of course, if you know German ignitions, you can only turn it once. Oh, she's trying. Oh, starter. Well, you know what, let me plug the AFM in, see if that helps here. One sec. pull that off. Forgot I didn't have the AFM in place. Of course, I'm missing the clamp. We'll just ignore that for a minute. You know what, we're gonna have to put a clamp on it, so let me bring it back. All right, we got the AFM on, and you know, I'm calling it an airflow meter, but it's really like a vane meter. It's got that flap that's inside, but that's on and secure. So let me get some fuel flowing again here. Here are the pumps. The muffler's blown out on the bottom, but the rest of the exhaust is intact. But she's running. So now to figure out why it won't do it without jumping the fuel pumps. But also there's no throttle response. Let me try and plug in this cold start injector. I'm being happy about something. I don't know why there's no response to the throttle. I'm opening it wide open and it's not doing anything. So that is really strange. We probably should test out this AFM, see if that's reading correctly. I mean, who knows how long this car's been sitting. I've been thinking 3 to 5 years, just based on there was an ownership change in, I believe, 2015. So I figured they probably bought this, ran it for a little bit, or maybe they just bought it as a project and you know, could do anything. So it has been possible, or it is possible that this thing's been sitting even longer. But it runs. I can't believe it. It really makes my day that this thing isn't knocking. There's no holes in the block. There's, you know, nothing crazy. So it's really cool to hear that this thing fire up and mostly idle. You know, I want to try one more thing. Let's pull this out. I've heard that these the cold start injector can be a bit of an issue. So let me plug the relay back in. We also could have issues from those vacuum leaks. That'll cause issues, but I think the main issue really was that the fuel pumps just aren't being told to be turned on, and I'm trying to figure out why. According to the manual, as long as those 3 circuits work in the manner they did, constant power on 30, I believe it's 15 is the hot and run and start, and 50 is hot and start. According to the manual, as long as all 3 of those work, this should start. And it's not. It'll only start when I prime the fuel or run the fuel pumps jumped. But let me give it one more crank here. Just see if she'll start up with the relay in. I'm not expecting it to, but you never know. I think that's just residual pressure in the line. It also will not keep running if there's no fuel pressure. Well, not no fuel pressure, but not optimal fuel pressure. So, oh, that starter's so bad. I don't know, she's trying now. No. Lost enough fuel pressure. So that cold start injector is not the issue. I think I can own that out and test it and verify that that's an issue, not an issue. Same thing with the idle control valve. Again, I don't think either one necessarily keeps it from running. I just think it makes it run like garbage. So the other avenue that I'm going to explore with it not starting on its own is, now it does say those 3 circuits need to work in the way that I mentioned, hot at the correct times, which it does, but it also needs to see engine RPM. Obviously the engine is spinning, but if the computer or the ignition module is not seeing engine RPM, it's not going to turn the pumps on. So, you know, I'm not really sure. I'll have to investigate that further, and you know, we'll come back from there. All right, so I just wanted to do one last thing here. I think I'm actually going to call it. The video is getting kind of long, at least for me. Got my fuel pressure gauge hooked up here, and hopefully you guys can see it. We do go to 40 psi, right where it should be. So it does drop just a touch, but it holds. You know, I tried this and let it sit for 5 minutes or so, and it didn't drop. So I don't think I had any leaky injectors either. So what I'm thinking it is, as I mentioned before, the DME or ECU, DME is what Germans call it, is not seeing engine RPM. And on the M10, there's actually no crank sensor, and there's no camshaft sensor. And that, from my understanding, is basically because it uses a distributor for ignition, and it's not, ignition is not actually controlled by the DME. And again, that's my understanding. I could be wrong on that. But I read somewhere that this engine basically, in carbureted form, needs like 3 wires to run. So even in this form, you know, it just needs to see engine RPM in order to turn the fuel pumps on, and then all the ignition is controlled through the distributor, like an older engine. And this is, from what I understand, from like basically the 70s. This M10 engine was originally carbureted and then equipped with this, I believe it's the L-tronic ignition. It's very, very basic. Good news is if I really wanted to ditch it, because there is absolutely no support for it, I could go with like a mega squirt system, and then I make this a little bit simpler, a little easier to diagnose, and keep running. But I think we're missing engine RPM, and I think that's what's not turning the pumps on. Again, it could be that relay is just bad. I may see if I can return it and get another one. We were trying to test it, bench test it, and see if we can get it to engage, and couldn't, but we might not have had the right combination. So from my understanding from the flow sheet, I'll try to insert that in the video here. Basically, it's terminal TD is the engine RPM input, and that is received from the coil. So it would be on, let me see if I can pick this up. Again, sorry, it's hard for you guys to see, but there's the yellow, and there is a black with a blue stripe wire. One of those two is the RPM signal. I tested for voltage there as I cranked. I'm not getting any. So again, I think that's kind of confirming that I'm not getting signal. So it's not energizing the relay and not turning the fuel pumps on. So I need to trace that back all the way, and I believe it just is one of these 2 wires here on the positive side of the coil. The green would be from the ignition switch, I believe. So I'm thinking it's this black wire here. There's not enough of it sticking out that I can see if it's that same black and blue striped, but I'm assuming it is. So I'll probably just do a continuity test, see if that does it. There also should be a lead going to this diagnostic port, pin 13. I'll see if there's any power there. I'll probably do that off camera. It's, again, just gonna be something I kind of bumble with. I'd rather bring you back in when I've got some positive diagnosis, or I know where I'm going with it. So we'll go from there. And I think actually my next step is going to be pulling this intake off. I didn't want to, and I'll tell you the reason why I am. So basically, obviously we have all this ICV stuff that needs to be rehabbed. I need to figure out what those 2 little vacuum lines are underneath there. But there's also some janky wiring that I need to fix. You can see on the alternator, we got electrical tape and a weird end, but what you can't see is behind this intake boot is a starter that we've been having some issues with. All the casing on the hot for the starter is starting to crumble and fall apart. I need to change that line out, before it shorts on something, burns the car down. I mean, I'm working here in my garage that's underneath my house. I really don't need to burn the house down. I don't think that would go over too well with the family. So I think that's gonna be the next move. And I could also just make sure that, you know, pull the injectors off, make sure that they're not leaking, and then just get a good look to see if there's anything else going on underneath there. So the other weird thing is that when I pull that throttle, I did verify that it does physically open, but you don't get any kind of extra RPM. It doesn't bog like it's leaning out, getting a ton of air. But you know, it could be something else. I don't know. It could be something with this airflow meter. Maybe that's not, you know, actually pulling enough to open that vein. I did feel like it was moving when I stuck my hand in the end here and just push on the flap. Kind of hear it. So we'll need to test that. I don't know if it's the same flow meter as the 91. I doubt it, since they're different, totally different motors, which I've actually incorrectly stated before. I said that was an M42. That's only a 318i. It's not an IS, so it's an M40. But again, still very different from this motor. So maybe that AFM will work, but we'll test this one. I've got a good service manual now that I can check things on and help with some of this electrical stuff. Said I'm not an electrical guy. I need good reference points, which, you know, you've seen I've messed twice, but I need good. It takes me more time to do electrical diagnosis than someone that's got a little more experience with it. But I think I'm gonna end this here. Like I said, this video is getting kind of long. I want to get it together and get it out at the end of this Labor Day weekend. So I want to thank all my new subscribers. The channel is just absolutely blown up recently. You know, obviously not big numbers, but you know, I was at probably 22 subscribers for the first several weeks, and then in just one day it basically tripled. So I want to thank everybody. I appreciate you taking some time to watch the videos. I hope you enjoy it. You know, make sure you do the whole like, share, subscribe thing so this channel can continue to grow and I can keep doing some projects and bring you guys along and show you what I'm working on. So like I said, from here I think I'm going to pull that intake off, get a list together, get some stuff ordered from probably FCP Euro. Absolutely love that website. I bought a lot of parts from them for my E46. They have all OE, OEM, lifetime warranty on everything. And their customer service is fantastic. Absolutely love purchasing through them. The only negative thing I guess I could say, if I had to, is that their shipping has slowed down a little bit. I used to be able to get things without paying for the premium shipping in 3-4 days. Now it seems like a lot of stuff's coming from the Midwest, like Utah, and it just takes a lot longer to get down here to Atlanta. When it ships from Connecticut, it's generally 2-3 days, but maybe it's just the kind of things that I'm buying. They're just not warehoused there in Connecticut anymore. But other than that, absolutely love FCP Euro. Appreciate everything that they've done for me as a customer. Nothing has been sponsored, but everything that I bought, any issues I've ever had, have been taken care of fantastically. So anywho, I'm gonna get out of here. Appreciate you guys taking some time on my channel, watch my videos, and we will see you in the next one.